Samantha Miller was a woman trapped in a relentless cycle of sleepless nights. The darkness beneath her eyes was as deep as the void inside her mind. She had always been a nervous sleeper, but this year had been different. Insomnia had stolen her peace. Days blurred into nights, and nights into days. The ticking of the clock felt like a hammer against her skull, each second a reminder that sleep was an elusive luxury. Her friends, her family, they all noticed it. But nothing helped. She tried every trick in the book, warm milk, herbal teas, even meditations, but nothing worked. She was a zombie, dragging herself through each day. Her boyfriend Mark grew frustrated with her constant tiredness, her irritability. "You're not the same anymore," he told her one night, the words stinging worse than any insult. But Samantha was too tired to care. Finally, desperate for help, she turned to Dr. Harris, a well-known sleep specialist in her city. He prescribed her a mild sedative, a sleeping pill that promised relief, and she took it with little hope left. To her surprise, the pill worked. Within 30 minutes, Samantha's mind, once a tangled mess of thoughts, began to quiet. She drifted into a sleep so deep, so peaceful, that for the first time in months, she felt alive. Mark, however, wasn't as supportive as she had hoped. Just a week after she started taking the pills, he broke up with her. "I can't do this anymore, Sam. I met someone else." His words struck her like a dagger. He didn't even look back when he left her apartment, walking out the door without hesitation. Samantha was shattered. The man she had loved was gone, and now her nights, once filled with restless tossing, were even darker. Her loneliness felt suffocating. She felt as though the only solace she could find was in sleep, and so she did what any person desperate for rest might do. She took 3 times the prescribed dose of sleeping pills. The effect was instant. The world around her faded into oblivion, her mind falling into a deep, dark sleep that felt like a death of its own. But this sleep wasn't like the others. This time, when she woke, she wasn't in her cozy, dimly lit bedroom. She opened her eyes to find herself in an eerie, dimly lit hallway. It was narrow and long, with walls that seemed to stretch infinitely. She stood, her legs unsteady, trying to grasp what was happening. Was this a dream? A hallucination? The air was thick with a cold, unnatural chill. As she walked forward, the floor creaked beneath her feet. The walls twisted and turned. Corridors appeared where none had been before. She turned a corner and found herself in a room that looked oddly familiar, yet not. The wallpaper was old and faded, the furniture covered in thick dust. And then, the horrifying realization struck her. This house, it was hers, but it was wrong. It was warped, darker. Suddenly she heard a whisper. She spun around, but no one was there. The whisper came again, this time from a room down the hall. Her heart pounded in her chest as she walked toward it, drawn in against her will. The door creaked open. Inside, there was a mirror. But the reflection in the mirror wasn't hers. It was her mother's, and then her father's, and her brother's. The faces of her deceased family members stared back at her with hollow eyes, as if they had been waiting for her all these years. The air was thick with their presence, suffocating. Their eyes didn't blink, didn't move. "Sam, it's time to come home," her mother's voice echoed, the words a chilling invitation. Terror gripped her heart, but as she backed away, the maze house began to shift. The walls began to groan, bending inward, closing her in. Shadows danced along the walls, and she could hear the faint laughter of unseen figures. She turned and sprinted, trying to find an exit, but every door she opened led her deeper into the maze. Rooms, hallways, corridors. They all seemed to loop in on themselves, never ending. Then she heard something. A soft, dragging sound. Slowly, she turned toward it. A figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, pale as death, with dark hair matted to her face. Her eyes were black as night, empty, devoid of any soul. She grinned, a twisted, unsettling smile. "You can never escape, Samantha," the figure hissed. "Not until you understand." Samantha ran. She ran and ran, but no matter how far she went, the maze stretched on. The dead faces of her family followed her in every mirror, in every reflection. The spirits of the house reached out, clawing at her, whispering things she couldn't understand. Just as Samantha thought she couldn't take any more, she heard a voice, a familiar one. It was Mark's voice, calling her name, soft and comforting. "Samantha, wake up, please." And suddenly, she was jerked awake. She gasped for air, her heart racing. Her bedroom, her bed. She was home. It had all been a dream. The next day, Mark called her. His voice was apologetic, regretful. "Sam, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I should have never left you. I've met someone else, but I still care about you. Can we try again?" Samantha, still shaken by the nightmarish experience, felt a brief flicker of happiness. Maybe life could return to normal. Maybe she could find peace again. But the peace didn't last. As she tried to let go of the nightmares, as she stopped taking the sleeping pills, something lingered. The maze house. It haunted her, even in her waking hours. Whenever she closed her eyes, even for a moment, she could see it. Those twisted hallways, the faces of her dead family members, the shadows of the spirits watching her from the corners of her mind. She could hear their whispers at night, see their figures lurking in the corners of her vision. It was as though the house had followed her into reality. And then, one night, it happened again. She woke in the middle of the night, feeling the familiar cold, the oppressive weight of the maze house closing in on her. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't move. The walls were closing in. She could hear Mark's voice, only it wasn't coming from the phone this time. It was echoing from the very walls of the house. "You're never getting out," it whispered, cold and distant. Samantha screamed. But this time, she wasn't sure if it was real. Was she still asleep? Or had the house claimed her once and for all? And just when she thought the darkness would swallow her whole, something shifted. The walls began to bend, and the house fell silent. The voices of her family, the spirits, the maze, it all stopped. She stood in the center of the maze house, and for the first time, she felt a strange sense of calm. She knew then the only way out was to face the house head-on, to confront the spirits that haunted it. With every ounce of courage she had left, she walked toward the center of the house. The mirror stood before her, now cracked, its surface broken. And in that reflection, Samantha saw not her family, not the spirits, but herself. "I'm free," she whispered, as the house began to crumble around her. And just like that, the maze house disappeared. The air cleared, and when she opened her eyes, she was back in her own bed. Mark was beside her asleep, but Samantha knew better now. The house was still out there, waiting for her to return. The maze house had not truly left her.